Hey everybody, David Burns, and welcome to another video. Today is the Green Chair Friday answer day from questions that you had last night during my live stream. And boy, I'm so glad I was able to get my live stream out last night. I was live from Iowa. I'm actually still here. I'm at the Iowa Honeybee Producers Association. I think that's the name of it. So been speaking, gave a talk this morning, and then be giving another talk tomorrow afternoon. And I met many of you that are here. Some of you drove from other states to be here. So all the Iowa people are excited about this conference. And boy, this has been a great conference. So today I'm still in Iowa. And so that's why my backdrop looks a little different. It looks kind of messy back there. I never like videos with a messy background, but we'll let it go. But I am sitting in a green chair. Trust me, it is green. It's kind of a bluish green, but it does qualify for the green chair answer on Friday. And it is good to be with you. And so I want to pull up my questions that we didn't get to yesterday, and I want to answer these questions. So let's jump right into it and get started with this question. Will the queen be in her cage permanently during the winter? So this must be a leftover question from a conversation about me putting a queen cage and trying to get my queens to overwinter in a hive through this little system that I'm trying to build where I can overwinter cage banked queens in the wintertime. Will the queen be in her cage permanently during the winter? Yeah, she'll be in that cage permanently. I don't expect this to work, but what I've done, if you didn't watch my video, I actually am trying to create a way where I can overwinter maybe 10 or 15 queens in their individual cage, protected from the actual queen of the hive, and survive the winter that way. And so I'm doing it the most simplest way first to see if that would work, because that way I don't have to create things. I don't have to complicate it. I can do it simple to start with. If the simple method doesn't work, that's when I'm going to apply more energy and time to figure out what I need to do to make it work. But always start the simplest way, because if it works, I don't have to spend all that time trying to figure it out. I'm a little hoarse. I've been talking all day. Excuse me. All right, next question. Hey, John, I looked in one of my hives in Southern Illinois today, and it was almost completely out of pollen. It still has plenty of honey. Is that normal this time of the year? It has many small hive beetle to feed pollen patties. It has many small hive beetle. Oh, maybe it means it has too many small hive beetles to feed pollen patties. I don't know. But yeah, pollen patties can really attract the small hive beetle. We do need pollen in our hive. Now, you can have bee bread, and that is pollen, but it's pollen with the enzymes in it that kind of preserves the pollen for winter. So check to see if you have bee bread. If you have bee bread, you're going to be okay. The bee's going to utilize that protein through the bee bread. But we really do need pollen, excuse me, during the winter. That's why the things that we feed, the things that I feed or we feed bees, it does have pollen in it for winter. Like the winter bee kinds have the protein mixed in the sugar, the one-to-one sugar water. I add the protein powder substitute there to help my bees have a little bit. They need a little bit of protein for winter. They really do. So either feed them protein, get them going with some type of protein if they are low on pollen. It will help them a lot. Okay, if you had only one method of treating mites, what would it be? Be specific. Love your channel. Thanks again. That's something that I probably would never say, because none of us have one method. Those of us that even have a pretty good background in using the different treatments, I don't know if there's one that I prefer over the others, because we use different treatments at different times of the year under different circumstances. It's not a good idea, in my opinion. What do I know? But it's not a good idea, I don't think, to use just one treatment. It seems like we need to change it up. So I think it's good to use 2 or 3 different treatments per year. and based on the season, right? There's different treatments that you use at different times. Having said all of that, right now, Viroxan, I've made a couple of videos me using Viroxan strips, brand new, just became available in the last month or so, and they look real promising. They really do. I haven't got all the results back on me using these, but they're easy to use. I like them. I like what they are going to possibly do for Mite Control. I really am very optimistic. I may come out and say, well, no, that didn't work as good as I thought. But right now, I'm kind of banking on Viroxan. So check that out. What is it? VOA. I can't even spell it. I can type it out, but Viroxan. Check it out. The other thing that I really like is Formic Pro. Now, a lot of people feel like Formic Pro kills their queens, but I think using one pad and then, waiting the amount of time to use the other pad of Formic Pro is going to help not kill the queens or brood. But that's a really good effective mite treatment because it kills under the caps. And a lot of mites are under the cap cells of the pupae. When you see cap brood, there are a lot of mites that are in the developing pupae there. And that's where the mites multiply or reproduce. And so if you can kill mites there, you'll be better. So I can't really say there's one. I guess you said one method. So one method would be, choose a treatment plan that can keep your mites down below at least 2 or 3 per 100 mites all year long. That is the best plan. Hey, Leah, it says, do you have any advice on how a newcomer should manage their expectations for my first year? Where will I surely make plenty of mistakes? Leah, all of us want to make as few mistakes as possible. I get it. Listen, here's the deal. I want you to give yourself permission, and all of you, I want to give yourself permission to make mistakes. And here's why. You're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. I still make mistakes. I often say I'm here to help you make fewer mistakes and keep healthier bees. Fewer mistakes. I don't say no mistakes. I say I'm here to help you make fewer mistakes. We learn a lot when we make mistakes. And I think that's powerful. When we make mistakes, we learn a lot more because that mistake sometimes is very painful. The more emotions we have in our learning process, the better we hold to what we need to know. So don't feel bad about making mistakes. Obviously, if you can avoid making the very simple mistakes that you probably wouldn't make if you had a basic fundamental understanding of honeybees, that's where I would encourage you not to make those mistakes. And let me explain. So in other words, take a beekeeping course, a beginning foundation in beekeeping, have a basic understanding of honeybee biology, and take some sort of a class in beekeeping. That will keep you from making the very simple mistakes that no beekeeper should make, right? And what are those simple mistakes that you shouldn't make? It's things like not being aware of swarm cells and not knowing what swarm cells look like. You don't want to start beekeeping and not be able to identify drones, not being able to identify eggs. Those are mistakes that are avoidable. All it takes is you to study and have basic beekeeping biology. So avoid making those simple mistakes. Know your bees, understand beekeeping, and then the management and the working of the hives. That's where you're going to learn over a period of time, and you'll get better at it. So give yourself permission to make mistakes. Hey, Wayne, does the queen marked frames or areas to clean out to lay in? Oh, does the queen mark frames or areas to clean out to lay in? Seems to be honey bound, and she's not laying any fresh I could see today. So the bees actually will prepare a place for the queen to lay. They will actually clean those cells out for her. They'll sometimes use a little bit of propolis to actually kind of sterilize the cells. They have to be cleaned out. It's the incubator. It's the maternity ward for the young. So they have to be pretty good looking cells for her to lay in there. That's why you watch your queen. She's always sticking her head down in there and looking at the cell base before she lays in it. She doesn't want to waste an egg and lay it into a little bit of nectar or a little bit of pollen they're putting in there. So she's making sure that the bees have cleaned out an area. I call it, maybe, I don't know, maybe other people call it this, but I call it a place where the bees have dried out an area for her to lay in. Yeah. That's sometimes how I know that if I can't find the queen and I don't see her anywhere, maybe I've got a new queen, a virgin queen that's on a mating flight or something. When I see areas that have been cleaned up and ready for her to lay in, I know she's there, and they do too. Good question. How far should I place water from my hive so I don't attract robber to my hive? I have robber screen. Well, if it's sugar water that you're referring to, Glenn, as far away as possible. I mean, half a mile would be better. But I know usually we don't have that much space, but as far as possible, far as you can afford to. And then if you're just feeding them water to drink, H2O with no sugar in it, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to rob water. So that wouldn't make any difference. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you, David, for all your videos. They've been very helpful. I appreciate that. No question there. Tracy asked, why will my bees not drink the sugar water from a hive top feeder? They need it for stores. And by the way, I'm not putting up these images of the questions like I normally do on my Green Chair Friday. It's raw and unedited, but quite honestly, I don't have the edit time because I am speaking and I am in conference, and I'm just back in the hotel room hurrying to get this video done. And it will help me not to have to post the questions up there. But if I read them, you'll get it. So if your bees aren't drinking the sugar water from that top feeder, let's talk about what's in it. If you're adding additives to it, they may not need those additives, and that may be why they're not drinking it. Just try to do 1-to-1 sugar water only. If you're doing 1-to-1 with no additives and they're still not drinking it, it could be that they're still getting nectar, and that's where they're going to get it. That's about the only reason I could think that they wouldn't be taking sugar water. Bees are fanatic this time of the year. They go into a frenzy with 1-to-1 sugar water. So, yeah, that they should be consuming that. Make sure I'm sure you've done these things, Tracy. Make sure the holes in your jar, if you're using that, make sure they have access to it. Make sure they haven't propolized the little holes in the jar lid closed. Sometimes bees will do that. It's strange. Yeah. Hey, Leslie, I feed my chickens watermelon, and the bees always come and eat the watermelon too. Is that okay? Or am I attracting robber bees? Yeah, you'll be attracting robber bees. Anytime. Honey, watermelon is sweet. Most of our fruits like this have carbohydrates in them, sugar in them, and that's why bees love anything sweet. Watermelon is sweet, and they will go, it's moist sugar water. So it will also attract robbers, to answer that question. Yep. Hey, there's Ross Wagner, been a member of my YouTube channel now. I have membership, by the way. It's different than subscribing, but he's been a member for 6 months. And he says, thanks for all your hard work. Well, thanks, Ross. Joanna, maybe. I have 2 queen in one hive. Can't tell one from the other. What do you think I should do? I have 2 queens in one hive. Can't tell one from the other. Okay, so I'm perplexed. Can't tell one from the other. I'm going to assume that you know for sure that you're not seeing the same queen twice. I think I don't want to imply that you are, but I'm saying if you can't tell the difference, let's make sure you're not seeing the same one twice. So you want to take the frame that the queen is on, one queen is on, set it outside the hive, right? And that way, when you look at the other frames, you see another queen. Yeah, you know, the other one's there and this one's here. I assume you've already done that. But if you have 2 queens in one hive, I think you should leave them alone and be happy about that. I really do. 2 queens in one hive is not extremely uncommon. It's only uncommon because beekeepers see the first queen and they stop looking anymore. So a lot of beekeepers may have, not a lot, but some beekeepers may have 2 queens and they don't see the second one because they stop looking. So in your case, you've noticed it. And it's a good thing because you have twice the laying power. Yeah, you do. I mean, that's the best case scenario, but it's hard to achieve that. Usually it's a mother and daughter queen relationship. Hey, Jen, have you overwintered your hives in a shed? Jen, one time I overwintered a whole bunch of hives inside a room of my shed. So I guess that qualifies. It was tough because we had a warm up in the middle of January in Illinois, and that's unusual. And the room got really hot. And that many hives in one room, the hives produce a lot of heat and a lot of moisture and a lot of bad air, stale air. So it was difficult for me to air condition it down to keep it. I'd like for it to be 40 degrees. It was pushing 60 and 70 because of the hot weather outside, and the bees were making heat. And I didn't like it. I barely got them through the winter. They would have done better. I finally stopped and put them back outside. I couldn't cool that room. And so there's a little bit of trickiness to it. It's kind of tough. It really is. Hey, Mike, question. Would it be okay to feed 1.5 to 1? Would that promote brood and food storage? Yeah. So not 2 to 1, but 1.5 to 1. That's getting very, very specific, Mike. I don't think we need to get that specific. If I think we should just fall back to what we know, and that is, if you do 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, they're going to be more likely to store that because they can dry it into honey faster. And 1 to 1 would be more consumed by the bees, and that would help them have more brood. But I see you're saying let's split the difference. 1 to 5 to 1, they would have brood and food storage. It's not a bad idea. I don't know if that's something that would work or not. But I do think the thinner the syrup is, the more brood that we can produce and not storage. Even thinner than 1 to 1 would probably produce more brood, I would think, because that's what the nectar is in the spring. It's much more has much more moisture than 1 to 1 does. Nectar usually does. Hey, Matthew, my freezer is full. What other ways are there to have the same effect on frames for wax moth? Okay, so if you harvest your honey and now you want to store your supers, and you don't want wax moths to, if there's eggs in there, you don't want wax moths to hatch. So you freeze them in your freezer. That way it kills the eggs of wax moth or small hive beetle. And then what are some other ways if I don't have a freezer, or if it's full, if you live in a very cold climate like I do? Many years I've gone outside, turned a top cover upside down, stacked all my supers out there where they're just tight together, put a top cover on the top. I think I can stack 10 or 15 and make a big column, make sure they don't blow over. And then it gets so cold in Illinois that outdoors becomes my freezer. Other than that, you might have to find a friend that has a big walk-in freezer that you can store these in. I don't know of any other way. Hey, Elizabeth. Elizabeth says, hi, David. I have 3 medium boxes on 1 hive. The middle box is full of honey, but the top box doesn't have much. Should I switch the middle and top boxes so that the full box is on the top, or are they fine? I like to switch them. I mean, it's a gamble. It's a risk. I don't know if it makes a lot of difference. I usually say, that's how bees have set it up. Let's just leave it that way. But I kind of like the idea of the bees having honey above them for the wintertime. It does sound a little bit better if it doesn't have any brood in it, to swap them. Lisa, David, do I have to give them liquid inside the hive in the winter? We don't feel that feeding bees liquid in the winter is generally a good idea. Although I've had beekeepers tell me they do it and they have been very, very strong colonies. I sometimes feel like too much liquid makes them have to defecate more, go potty breaks more. And if it's really cold, they may not be able to, maybe too much of a gut feeling, where I feel like hard candy could extend the amount of food that they can take at one time, maybe, or reduce the amount so they would eat it slower. But I would say, why don't you try it, Lisa? And don't try it on many hives, and don't try it on a hive that you're not willing to lose. It's like investing in the stock market. So don't try this liquid winter feeding unless you're willing to lose the hive, or if something happens, then it works, then you have the answer. Don says, hi David, can I run bottom deep and 2 mediums for winter? The top medium has 5 to 6 frames, partially uncapped honey. All right, so let me take this apart here. Can I run bottom deep and 2 mediums for winter? That would be yes. The top medium has 5 to 6 frames, partially uncapped honey. Well, Don, I'm not real happy with partially filled frames on the top box. As the bees move up there, they'll consume those 5 or 6 frames and they'll be empty. They'll be out of food. And they may not be able to go back down if you've got food outside on the extended wall area of, clusters can move sideways. Sometimes they do that. So if they get all the way to the top, they may not go back down. That's why I always feed my bees, my winter bee kinds, on top. And that way, when they get up there, there's always guaranteed food when they get up to the warmest and highest point. Bees travel up in the wintertime. That's how it works. So, yeah, uncapped. It sounds good until the uncapped honey super. I like to see all 10 or at least 8 or 9 of them filled up with nectar or honey. Hey, Chris. Chris says, Dave, is it normal to have a swarm land on one of my hives and just hang out there under the lip of the top cover? Yes. I've got pictures of my bees doing that with me standing beside them. And at that point, it's just a matter of us catching a swarm. You just got to brush them off and do another deep or something and make a hive out of them. I'm not sure why they do that. It's weird, isn't it, that they land on a hive like that? Hey, Jason, how do you put fondant on the hive in December or January with such cold temperatures? Maybe put the fondant over top the inner cover. I have double bubble as my inner cover, plus 3 layers of foam insulation. Now, Jason, this approach that you're talking about is very commonly used by beekeepers. They use all the things that you mentioned, the bubble and all that, and the inner cover hole and everything. A lot of beekeepers cut a circle hole or in their inner cover or this bubble insulation and all, and then they'll put their fondant. They'll open up fondant and put it right over that hole, and the bees go. The heat of the hive kind of keeps the fondant warm, and the bees will go up and do that. Yeah. That's not my favorite way of doing it, but a lot of people use it very successfully. And I don't think it's a bad idea, but I would just rather have the whole surface of the box available for food for the bees, because here's the thing. Sometimes the cluster moves beyond that hole and it gets so cold where I live, they can't access the middle where that hole is. But with my winter bee kind on there, covering the entire opening top of that hive, no matter where the cluster goes, there's always food above them. Caleb, how are you doing? I opened a hive and immediately saw my queen in the top of the honey super and watched her fly away. After flying around, we watched her try to re-enter and I may have cut that off. Sorry. So Caleb, you saw a virgin queen. Yep. A mated queen will not fly unless she's swarming. So in this case, that was a virgin queen. She might be getting ready to take a mating flight, taking an orientation flight. Yep, that's what you saw. Oh, here's Jen again, unless I'm reading this twice. Recently got a hive and it was not messed with since it was a nuke, mostly honey for resource. Thought of using candy board. Any suggestions for the hive to survive? Oh, I think I answered this last night, but yeah, winter preparation, Jen, it's something that we do all year long. And I would say the best thing to do to get your bees to survive the winter is keep mites under control all year long. Make sure you have a very good laying queen and make sure the bees are well fed. That's how we're going to get them through winter. Okay, Lisa, David, we live in South Dakota in the Black Hills, and we go from 30 degrees, negative 30 degrees to 50 degrees in a week. Yeah, that's a big difference. Do we take off our cover when it gets warm and put it back on when it gets cold again? Well, you've heard me say this before that I don't like using insulation because when you do have a warm up in the wintertime, the insulation won't let the warmth of the sun really hit the side of the hive and warm up the cluster. They can move around and get honey that they may not have had access to when they were clustered tightly. But on the other hand, a lot of people are loving the condensing hive idea, and that is just put your hive in a totally insulated wrap and let bygones be bygones. Whatever happens, happens. Don't feed them, just wrap them, let them be. I find that a little risky for me personally, my opinion. I think it works well. I'm here at this conference, and Peggy, I believe DeSanto, is here with her, I think it's called the Hive Hugger. And she has, I think she does suggest totally wrapping up the hive in her special wrap that she's created. And that works for a lot of people. I'm not saying that it doesn't. In fact, the natural habitat of the bee works good that way. But for me personally, it removes too many options that I need to have in the wintertime. I need to be able to access my bees. I want to be able to feed my bees in the wintertime. I want to monitor them more. That's just me personally. I'm not putting that down at all. I think it works good for a lot of people. It's the neat thing about beekeeping is we all have our different ways of doing it. One way is not a bad way. One way is not the right or wrong way. And again, I never claim to have all the answers. I am a certified master beekeeper, but that doesn't mean I know everything. And it doesn't always mean that I'm doing the best of things, but I'm doing the best things that I know to do right now. And I never fault anybody else for trying somebody else and seeing how it works. So in this case, this insulation, it can be beneficial on a very cold snap. A lot of my friends, and I've done it too, I take my covers off when it's going to warm up and I let the sun hit that hive. A little more work if you have a lot of hives. Fritz the cat, I have 2 hives. They both have 100 pounds of stores. I added candy boards last week. Did I do it too soon in Connecticut? I don't know. You might. I don't really advocate adding the candy boards until late December or January. I don't think I do it before January because the bees should always have enough on there to get them through the winter. Candy boards I see are emergency feed in case they run out, it's cold, and they have to cluster very tightly on one side of the hive where they can't get to the center or they can't get to the honey that's in there. Then they'll have the candy board above them. Hey, Charlie, question. Why do I have so many wasps this time of year? I think I have more around my hives of them than robber bees. Oh, gosh. It's because it's warm. I think some places, Charlie, like where I live in Illinois, we've had a little bit of a frost here and there, a little bit of, freezing temperatures at night, but not enough hard kill yet to kill off a lot of these yellow jackets and wasps and things. So the warmer that it stays, the more more of these bugs are going to be around the wasp, and they're looking for food. Monica, Killian. All right. When should the entrance reducers go back in, or do they need to be in? So sometimes we take our entrance reducers out to put in robber screens and all that. It's good to go through the winter with an entrance reducer, if nothing else, to keep mice out, but primarily to keep cold winds from blowing in. Yeah. So you need to put those on right now. Yeah. Keep mice and wind out. Hello, Amy. Hi, David. A few of my hives have pollen in the bottom deep, no brood, no honey. Should I remove them for winter? A few of my hives have only pollen in the bottom deep. Oh, I see. No brood, no honey. Should I remove them for winter? Oh, Amy, I know. I wish I could open up your hive with you right now and take a look. I could make a better decision. And I wish I knew where you lived, how cold it is where you live. I don't have enough data to give you a really, really definite answer. So I'm going to have to say, if it was me in Illinois and I saw that I only have pollen in my bottom deep. And in my bottom deep, I don't have any brood. I don't have any honey. I might be tempted to remove it and put it in storage and let my bees overwinter without that there. I might try that. I've done that before. Tighten up the opening of the space down there. I guess the smaller the hive is that the colony is in, then the more easily they can keep it warm, keep their cluster warm. And yeah, I might be tempted to take that off. Hey, Jeff, will the attendant bees feed her? Will she get cold? Hey, Jeff, you're talking about my experiment trying to bank a queen in the wintertime. I look for that queen to not be fed well, and I look for her to get too cold. And it's one of those things where I should have thought it through better, because I think now in hindsight, by putting her in the top super, it dawned on me at 3 a.m. that bees really don't heat the top super. They can get below freezing up there. Yeah. So they're not going to go up there just for her and keep her warm, or they probably may not feed her if it gets cold up there. Kind of think I made a mistake. I think in hindsight, I wish I would have hung her. Watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. Made it a few days ago. I wish I would have placed her on the bottom of that frame or placed her in the second super. I think if I still have time, I'm going to grab another queen if I find that she died and put her in that one super down for more heat and feeding. Yeah. Who knows? I'm experimenting. Hey, Alec. Two-part question. Well, where's the first part? Oh, maybe I'll start with a two-part question. Okay. Northern Illinois resident. First year beekeeper, currently keep 2 hives on a friend's private property. It was brought to my attention that the neighboring property owner has a private gun club, an outdoor shooting range approximately 200 yards from my hives. Would the pollen, nectar, and flowers be more likely to get lead contamination from the gunpowder residue in the air? If so, can the bees then create honey contaminated with lead? Is there a laboratory you'd recommend that would test honey for lead and other contamination? I know a little bit of information about this. Boy, in the open air, let's see, a gun range. So you're probably going to have a lot of shooters there practicing. And, a lot of bullets today are coated bullets. And they're like either coated with a coating of some sort, and they can also be coated with what do they call that? I think it's copper or brass or something, but they have a coating on it. And so not many people shoot straight lead bullets anymore, but there is still lead contamination that can come from the primer in the gun. And of course, I don't think there's a lot of lead that would come from the gunpowder in the cartridge. But obviously you're right. And if it's an indoor range, you get a lot more lead contamination than outdoors. So would this smoke land on flowers and be brought back into the colony? That's a legitimate concern. Yes, it could be 200 yards away, though. I think the air is going to diminish that greatly. Personally, I would not be concerned about that. But then I could be in error. I don't know. And I don't know of any place you can have that tested either. Yeah. Good point. I'm glad you're concerned about that. Be Smart Robbing Guard switch to mouse mode now. Yeah, if you're done, if it's cold enough where bees aren't robbing anymore, they're not really going out much, you can put 2 pins on the bottom side, on the other underside of that Be Smart robber screen, and it becomes a mouse guard. And you might want to do it when you know robbing's over. Absolutely. Matthew, this might be my last question. Hi, David and team. Is it okay to feed 1-to-1 with warm days and cold nights? I think so. Here's why. When you're feeding from the top, that's why I designed my Burns feeder board, because the warmth of the hive keeps the sugar water warmer Yeah, believe it or not, it does. Because the heat of the cluster goes up, hits the lid, it hits the top of that hive like that, and it will keep the sugar water warmer. They may stop feeding at night if it gets cold enough where they need to cluster, but as it warms up in the daytime, they'll actually start drinking that again. So that'd be a big help. I think I got them all. Wow. Man, I had the ability, I guess, to just let me check. That was kind of amazing, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a lot of questions. I don't think it was 30. I work hard for you guys. I have your back. Don't feel like you're going through beekeeping all alone. My name's David Burns, and I'm here to help you. No, seriously, I really am. I was telling some people here at the conference, I answer hundreds of questions and help beekeepers hundreds of questions a week, and I really enjoy putting my arm around beekeepers and saying, "Look, we can do this together. I want to help you." Um, I I find it very humbling that you have invested time to watch my videos to learn about beekeeping from me. I don't take that lightly. Time is precious for all of us. And so I appreciate you watching. And you can tell I'm at a conference and I just had time to break from the conference, from my speaking engagements here, and come and talk with you and share. So I hope you do appreciate my efforts in helping beekeepers. I'm working hard for beekeepers. Man, I think I've worked harder trying to help beekeepers than I have all my other jobs and careers that I had. Yeah. Well, making videos too. I make a lot of videos. Anyway, again, I'm at the Iowa Honey Producers Association meeting, the great group of people. Look at this. I actually joined I became a member and of the Iowa State Beekeepers Association. I don't normally do that. I speak at a lot of state meetings. I think my next state meeting I'm speaking at is North and South Carolina, coming up late winter. I think it is in March, maybe. But I've got some other speaking engagements coming up. I'm going to be speaking in Wisconsin at the Beak Meet. That's in January. Speaking over in Indianapolis in a few weeks. So I've got some other things coming up. But state meetings I really enjoy speaking at. But I want to give a plug, not a paid promotion, but I really have enjoyed this Iowa conference. Jason, their president, has done a super job getting me here, getting other speakers here. I'm here with Randy Oliver, Judy Smart. There's a lot of speakers here. Larry Connors is here. A lot of speakers I've spoken with before are here. So we're having a good time. And it is very, very impressive conference. It really is. If you're in Iowa, there's some people, like I said, that are here that have driven from other states. I really want you to consider being a part of this Iowa conference next year, because I speak at a lot of conferences and this one is awesome. So it's really fun and I've had a great time being here. Looking forward to my talk tomorrow. You can still walk in and register if you live in Iowa and you're close by, you might want to consider that. I think we're in Altoona. Yeah, that's the name of it. Altoona, at a big casino. And it's a great big conference area here. So we're having a great time. So I'm glad I could break free and get this published. So thanks guys for watching. And if you want to watch the live stream that a lot of these questions were left over from, I'll refer to this video right here, and you can watch the live stream and join me every Thursday night at 7 p.m. live. I'll see you guys in my next video.